My name's Lee Hayhurst. I am the editorial director at Aviation Business News. We're delighted to be a media partner for this event for the third year in a row. New venue, more people, definitely growing in importance. So we've been really happy to be part of that journey over the last couple of years. So let's introduce the panel. We've got Veronica Hull from CellPoint Digital. Give everyone a wave.
Yeah, that's me.
Hello, Veronica. We have Patrick Crowley from Delta Airlines. Ursula Silling from Branchspace. There's Ursula on the end. And last but not least, Christian Baillet from Paximizer. Welcome, everybody. Let's start with a kind of gentle opener, but give you a chance to introduce yourselves as well, and we'll go from left to right, starting with Delta on my left. Just given the topic we're talking about, tell us a little bit about yourself, but also what your company is doing to make this complex world a simpler world to live in.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I oversee two factors for Delta, both our NDC program as well as our B2B contracting tools as well. And so as we think about those things together, you have to simplify what is available to our corporate passengers as well as our leisure passengers. When you look at Delta and kind of our history in North America, we really led the way with branded fares starting back in 2015. We kind of evolved that, created probably too many branded fares, and now have gone back to more simpler choices. And we've started that process earlier this year. So we've gone back to just 5 core brands. And within those core brands, you can see upwards of what we call 3 different experiences. It helps anchor the customer on the product and then the various attributes of their trip that they want. What's next for us is really focusing on, especially in corporate use cases, things around, you can call it attribute or product-based shopping, as well as kind of the impacts of AI, and I'm sure we'll get into that more.
Just before we go on, but interesting is to talk about almost of a cycle of becoming more complex and then going back to beginning, go back to first principles and becoming simpler again. Is there an actual sort of cycle to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also based on, cognitive load of the customers too. Too many choices, too hard to compare across carriers when you're comparing multiple carriers.
Okay, next up, Veronica. Tell us a bit about what you do there and how the company itself is working towards making a simpler world.
Of course. So firstly, for those that don't know me, I'm Ronnie. I work now for CellPoint Digital, which is a payment orchestration company. And you might be surprised as to why I'm here, but I'll explain more as we talk about buying and why that payment process is super important. For myself personally, I've been in the aviation industry for over 20 years. Firstly, for airlines, so British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, and working very closely with Delta as part of that. Most recently, I was working at Welling as part of their transformation team. So in terms of my role today, it's about how I'm going to support the business to transform. And I'm super excited actually to be working in the technology space now, because I spent a long time in distribution having this conversation, sometimes very heatedly, with my colleague to the right of me about how do we make selling simple. And now with the revolution around offer and order and all the momentum that's coming, I'm super excited to be part of the team trying to make that happen.
Lovely. Christian, I was looking at your website earlier. It says on it, your mission is to bring back the magic of travel. Is magic simple?
Well, magic has to be simple to be magic. Complexity is a misnomer somehow. I'll come to that in a second. So my name is Christian, yes, and I spent 20 years almost in travel tech, quite a bit of it at Amadeus, and then now in 2 startups, one related to travel visas, but now here talking about Paximizer. Our business at Paximizer is customer experience. And in that respect and simplicity, often when buying travel, it feels a bit like walking into a poster shop and being sold 1,000 pieces puzzle instead of a simple image which is ready to hang on the wall. Why? I mean, there are many reasons to this, but there's one I'd like to talk about today, which is often travel sellers and airlines have limited information about who their traveler is, who their customer is, and what he wants. As a result, they throw the entire product catalog at them rather than a curated offer. And here's my question as a discussion for the panel, but also for the industry. What are we doing about this? How are we going, as an industry, changing this? And this is a topic, of course, at Paximizer we are passionate about, and we'd like to moderate or facilitate that conversation.
Last, Ursula on the end, Branchspace. Explain a bit about what you do there and what the company is doing.
Yeah. Thanks very much for having me here in this panel. My name is Ursula Silling. I've actually been working in the industry, just as a little bit of to give that context, for more than 25 years. And one of the things I was most of the time in charge of the whole commercial portfolio in groups with British Airways, Lufthansa, Kenya Airways, in very competitive environments. And so often when trying actually to do things differently and gain some competitive advantages, the problem was always the complexity. We cannot do this is too complex, or it will take 6 months or a year and it will cost a lot of money. So Branchspace was founded in 2013, and it was actually exactly wanting to do, making it simple to buy products and services. Started off with consulting. We still offer consulting services. So I guess we are in the meantime one of the leading ones for offer order, where we help actually for the strategies and also to transition to offer order. So with simplification we've heard so many use cases today, how complex it is, how difficult certain use cases for customers are. So we help in that aspect. We've got 2 other pillars. One is a digital commerce platform, which is really looking at the 3 aspects which help to make products simple. On the one hand, the end-to-end digital journeys. So we create end-to-end digital journeys. We make them trustworthy, and we ensure that they really feel personal and human for the customer perspective, and all of this in a very modular way. And we've got UX, UI design services, where we are always at the cutting edge. We've got Gen Z here in the panel title. What does Gen Z do? But at the same time, what are the other use cases to ensure that we can actually create these digital journeys in the best possible and easiest and intuitive way?
We'll talk about trust a lot in this session, but we'll get onto that in a minute, the human aspect of this. But the title of the session does make an assumption, actually, that the simple is always good, complex is always bad. It can be in the eye of the beholder in some ways, I guess. Is it always a good thing to be simpler? I mean, the process of buying a trip or a holiday is sometimes people quite enjoy it, and the complexity is not really an issue. So maybe start again down this line, Patrick. Are we in danger of just making things too simple?
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting question, because it really depends on the segment is my answer here, because we have we're lucky in the US in that about 60% of our customers come direct. I know that's not the case for every carrier. With that comes the ability to better merchandise, and then giving those choices where you have control over that merchandising. I mean, it's fantastic, and you find that our loyal customers really like that they have all the choices. They can customize their trip. They can understand what they get, what they don't get. But when you start getting into a world of corporate, and especially OTA, you're comparing across carriers, it becomes a lot more complex, because me as a carrier, as I said, I have 5 products. Another carrier might have 10, another carrier might have 3. How do you compare all of those products? It becomes much more complicated, and the more ancillaries or benefits that you add on there, it makes it more complex, which is why I think when I look at our most loyal corporate travelers, they're at this point, they know exactly what they want and what's in policy. They want to be able to specify that and only see that content coming back, not just the entire product line. So we as an industry have some work to do to be able to better customize those options for that segment.
You can see the segment of the corporate regular traveller, they're very simpler. Simplicity for them is everything. Time is money, etc. But that's just one use case. I wonder, Ronnie, do we ask the customer enough what they want? Do we say, what do you think is simple, and what can we provide to you? Or are we dreaming it up ourselves internally and then applying that to the industry and saying, there you go, have that?
Yeah, I think as a consumer, and I know how I browse and buy other products, I'm very much, if it's easy and my card details are stored, I've probably bought it before I've thought about it. I think there's definitely a specific different use case depending on the context. And we talk about this concept of the big screen purchase. When you're spending quite a lot of money on travel, you want to make sure that you've ticked all the right boxes and you haven't put yourself in a position of buying something that's not refundable when you do actually need that refund and flexibility. It's really interesting listening to some of the perspectives in here about products, and we have so many products. And honestly, when I talk to people that aren't airline people, they don't even understand the concept of a product from an airline. They want to go to a specific destination for a price that they think is valuable to them, with the ancillaries and products included that they value and trust. So I think we, as an industry, historically, coming from multiple fare classes, filing fares, we've got this concept of product slightly different to probably what I would expect a consumer to have. And actually, when you think about the keynotes from the main hall this morning, which is talking about how we can sell more, add more combinations, mix this product with that product, we're actually getting potentially ourselves in a situation where not only with the core product that we offer as airlines, making it even more complex by adding in and sprinkling in all those third parties. And sometimes you just want a simple option, of course.
There is a danger it gets more complex, not least because a customer is always being targeted by multiple vendors, and you're not always using. It's great that you've got your 60% direct, and they're just dealing with Delta. But for most people, they've got all sorts of the airline, at the airport wants to say something, the car hire company, and so on. A phrase used earlier, which is a good one, I think. It's hard to say, so I'll go slowly. The Amazonization of air travel. I think that's right. Is that the ultimate aim? Do you think? Christian, that we're looking to emulate Amazon, or is that a false analogy for air and travel?
I don't know. It's an old analogy. Sorry, we've heard it for many years. Let's become retailers. Let's do that as good as Amazon. I think there is a part where complexity is probably interesting, is when inspiration. But that's more leisure travel to a large extent, because you're already on holidays while you browse all the options. Then, though, do you want to stitch all the pieces together? That's less obvious. So there are parts of the journey which may be open to complexity, others simplicity. Whether Amazonization or not, I don't know, but by definition, Amazon is very easy to use, and I think travel would benefit from some more ease, consumer ease in processing and buying the services.
One thing in travel customers like doing, I think we sort of alluded to that, is comparison shop. If you're just given a very simple, specific offer, you don't. And again, it goes back to the trust thing, doesn't it? If you're only given one option, which is optimized to you, and it's obviously the best one, because we tell you that is, trust goes out the window, because you think, well, how do I trust this? Well, I need to be able to compare. Is the danger we move away from comparison shopping because we want to be too simple?
I don't think so. I think if you are customer-centric, you know how consumers behave. You actually want to ensure exactly what you are saying, Lee, that people feel we've made a good deal. They want to search. Maybe they've also simply got an idea. I want to go to a country somewhere in the south with nice beaches and sports capabilities. What are the cheapest offers that you've got? And enter this even as a sentence instead of the traditional search where you already need to have an opinion about of where you go, and you think about airports instead of your destination and where you want to go to. But you want to definitely then be confirmed. Actually, I've got a choice of different deals. I've got a choice on how I put my trip together. So this also means when going through the booking process, I get the right offers at the right time. If I took a Gen Z example and I said there were 3 people really digital savvy, they are booking already, you would want to ensure they can book mobile because they would typically book mobile and you achieve a much higher conversion. You want to have a mobile app for this. They also don't stick to your brand that easily, so definitely with a mobile app you can achieve that. But you want to ensure that each one can still have different options, even ideally in one booking, which they might want to have, because one might still study, doesn't know exactly when the exams will be ready. The other one just wants the best deal, nothing else, not even book the seat. And if I think about payment and how important this is to complete, they might want to buy now but pay later, for example. So they might want different payment models, and you need to take account of this. And I think there's one more dimension of simplicity. It's also the airline teams. It's about how can the teams actually who are also learning, obviously, and getting gradually more digitally savvy, how can they deal with it? So we tend to say we do data-driven dynamic retailing, but if you overwhelm the teams and they suddenly have huge amounts of data, it can actually go awfully wrong and become a big project. What we are doing, we make this dependent on the context that is out there, and this allows actually the right offers at the right time for the customer, but it allows the teams as well to have the learning curve and to be able to deal with it and to experiment.
I think everything you talked about there, it adds up to trust in the outcome, doesn't it? So you mentioned sort of dynamic retailing, and that makes me think of dynamic pricing.
Just a word about comparison shopping. Amazon actually enables comparison shopping. The difference is that the product is much simpler to buy than travel. But you always have, you see different offers for what you search for.
You do, yeah. Let's go back to trust and dynamic pricing. Dynamic or continuous pricing. it got a bad name recently with the Oasis tickets, and that undermined trust. And I think as a result, no one says dynamic pricing anymore. We call it continuous pricing. So you can get it wrong, can't you? You can apply technology for all the best of intentions, but it can actually go wrong. It's about contextualized approach to technology, isn't it? Ronnie, when we talk about this, how do you? Technology is not a human. It's easy. It's developed by humans, but it's a bit of it's a sort of an inhuman thing. So to layer in a trust is hard to pin down, isn't it? And how does technology and trust interline?
How they go together. I mean, for me now, working in payments and actually coming back to payments, I see that as a real good example of where you can blend how you work with the customers and the service that you give them. For me, it was super important when I was working at Virgin Atlantic that we offered the forms of payment that people wanted to use in the markets that they were comfortable in using. And for me, that is super important from a customer perspective, and that lends itself to trust. So I think as you were describing the journey that people can go through from ideation through to selection, there's different levels of complexity, and technology can play a role in harmonizing and simplifying that in certain points. And I think making things at certain elements very frictionless is really important, and that drives the trust. And technology helps you to deliver that, of course.
Patrick, have you got some examples how Delta is trying to generate a trust relationship with the customer?
Yeah, so I will say we got ourselves into some trouble the other month after our earnings call. Our president talked about some AI pricing proof of concepts that we were using, and had a number of senators reach out to us. So we'll just clarify that while we are experimenting with that, there is nothing that we're doing in terms of predatory or discriminatory pricing there. It's more about using market data to aid our analysts. However, that is an example of deteriorating trust. When we look at the biggest trust issues we have today, it is differences between a legacy GDS Edifact offer and what we have on our own .com. And corporate, that becomes very important, where corporate travel manager will reach out to me and say, hey, my people are telling me there's a cheaper price on your .com. And it usually comes back to it's a basic seat, there's no seat assignment, and they've suppressed that in the GDS. So when we look at NDC, what's coming next, creating seamless offers across all our channels, that is the value that we think NDC brings, is harmonizing all of our offers across all of our channels so that no one channel is advantaged, and you can build that trust and also empower our partners who help us retail our products.
I think it was mentioned before, sometimes people, when they buy a travel product, they go to a big screen. So they maybe start on their phones, and then that's a trust issue, isn't it? The big screen feels more trustworthy. It's probably not. It's just a very human instinct. So is device use part of the answer to this, and generating trust through the kind of devices that we use? Is that, Christian?
I think that the big screen is more you access more information. It's easier to get an overview of all the different sorts of information as a consumer. And when it's complex, well, you need more information to process it in your mind. Which is also why, if you want to do more mobile business, it's another reason to simplify, other than just consumer experience. On the mobile, it's difficult to sell complex stuff.
I think even like the question of if you've got just a phone versus a desktop, you might be able to display 5 products on a desktop, 1 on a phone. What product do you anchor on, right? And even that can deteriorate trust or gain trust with the consumer.
And I actually think trust ultimately is that things work. And that could be simple, but it's actually quite complicated to ensure that it works. And I think the fact that often there is this impression it works better on the web portal, for example, is simply that when you book mobile, you might not have the perfect internet, you might be on the road, you do it on the go in a queue, you want to finish fast, you want to go through it. That's actually the real almost test case. If you manage this, then easy, it has to be fast, you need to offer the right things in a simple way. In this smaller design on your screen, you will automatically think about being able to, I book what I booked last time, just do the same thing. And all of this needs to be completely based on the consumer behavior and the kind of the best possible way. I think this often hasn't happened, works throughout and up to the payment, then the consumer actually already really trusts that the performance is good, and automatically even thinks this is also a good brand because it works. And I think that's quite a very important element of this, what trust means. And the other thing of it is how transparent are you with what you offer? So how can you check how do you understand your product? Do you really buy what you get? And obviously on mobile it is again more difficult because you've maybe got less to do that, but there are ways and whether it is showing also pictures, videos, whether it's how you describe even in a very simple way immediately what it entails, but you find it at the right moment, you know what you get.
Yeah. Ronnie, you were going to...
I was going to say the same in terms of the context of the product that airlines, I keep saying we because I've worked for airlines for so long, so sorry and apologies to Christian over there for that one. We create that problem, and depending on the brand and depending on the airline that you're working with, you can make that easier or harder. So having worked in full service, generally you know, even before the branded fares, that you're going to get most of the things that you need, and then you can add your ancillaries on. But for the last couple of years working for a low-cost carrier, many customers are not seeing all of the information, and that then drives a customer experience problem as they get to the gate and realise they haven't paid for that overseat bag or their underseat bag, or they thought they had X and they thought they had Y. So I think you have to be ready to be able to provide that information for the customer in the way that they want to consume it. So whether that's at the time they're booking or is that later afterwards, ensuring people are clear with what they've bought. And again, making the payment process really simple helps reduce some of that friction, of course.
This conference is all about the revolution into OOSD, or offer, order, settle, deliver. In some ways that feels more complicated because of the number of different products that might be bundled up into an airline fare. So are we in danger of becoming more complicated? Are we in that cycle of increased complexity? And is that a danger that the industry is currently in? We actually just make it more complicated.
I think we're probably limited today in terms of what we can do and making it clear, and things like being able to line item what you've got, what you didn't get. When there's a service failure, being able to refund that piece of that experience that they didn't get. We're not there yet, but when you get to that, you're starting to enable, one, the trust we were talking about in terms of, I know what I bought, and if I didn't get it, I know I'm going to get something back for it. The other piece here is, I think we all do so much work testing with our consumers to understand like what's working, what's not working. Same way I said we had a lot of brands, we went back to less brands. I think you would see the same thing happen if we get to a world that's too complex, but I think there is a underlying customer need, and it's across multiple segments, to be able to further customize their trip. And as people travel more and more, have more experience, they have the phone in front of them, that ability to customize, and that is really what an offer and order world is, becomes really powerful for the traveler to make their trip what they want.
I'm thinking of some examples in the real world, like, so you look in this country, the way, for instance, EasyJet is morphing into a full service holiday company, really, with EasyJet Holidays, and that's well, they're driving a lot of their profits from that part of the business, and that's obviously going to be very interesting to every airline out there who are struggling with small profits. But selling a holiday is a far more complicated thing than selling an airline seat, but they seem to be doing it well, and actually the customer does trust them. Discuss. I mean, are they doing it well?
It depends as well how much you want to own of that experience. So if you take Amazon, even if you're buying with Amazon products and you have a problem, you go back to Amazon. They don't try and pass you down the line to whoever it was, the delivery and the service recovery. So I think airlines do have to have a word for themselves as to say, are we actually able to offer that to the level that we want our brands to be represented?
They make it easy to buy at the buying airline, but the delivery is complex, and if it goes wrong, that's where you realise how complicated.
Exactly, because the customers, and that will then erode the trust, right? So if you do have this multi-basket, and in general, most of the time, if you do buy additional products from an airline, regardless of whether the airline is the fulfiller of that service, we tend to get the first complaint. And they never fly with whichever airline it is because XYZ part of their process didn't work, and it's always the airline for the reasons. I'm not really sure why. Do you know why? It's always comes back to the airline.
Easy to blame.
It's just always. I mean, we tend to be the first thing you buy when you're putting a holiday together.
That's it.
I think that's also probably the issue.
In some cases, though, it could be the tour operator. Instead of buying EasyJet holidays, you buy TUI. So it's because you enter that space, and that's
the brand you initially deal with.
Yeah.
It's down to the nature of this business of travel, where there's many vendors many providers of the service, the airline, the hotel, the transfer, etc. And stitching it all together is risky and presents failures from time to time, and they're of course tricky to manage.
And I think what Veronica said is it's quite a good example to know trust is also, if I have a problem, what happens afterwards. I think IKEA was very good, particularly also during COVID with a 365 days return or other activities. So actually, if you buy something and you know self-servicing works seamlessly and I can easily make changes and it works, that's great. And when thinking about when you started off, Lee, saying, will everything get easier with offer order, or can it even get more complicated if you suddenly you will be able to actually say, I actually fly regularly Geneva, London, I'm now going to buy my next 10 trips already, and in addition, in one go, instead of doing all of my bookings separately, I'm going to book my other trip to visit my friend in Brussels and still add a couple of ancillaries for me, and I also book my husband for this one trip with me, and he will come late from work, he will want the fast track. I add all of this already. So actually the amount that you spend is much, much higher than before. If you don't have the trust that it works, that you can rebook, you can make changes easily, you are in good hands with this brand, and it works, then you wouldn't do it. So I think it's almost the problems can get bigger if you don't do it right, because you can do a lot more things even in one go.
Let's, in the time we've got left, let's look to the future. It's not really the future, they're here now. The Gen Zs are with us, you know, they have a very different view of how to deal with brands. They've grown up in the world of Amazon and so on. We're also moving into a world of Agentic AI, and goodness only knows how that will change things. I suspect we'll use our voice more, we'll use fewer screens, we certainly won't be pressing buttons as we're used to at the minute. We'll start with the vision for the future then, Patrick. How does Delta keep up with this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have started integrating AI into our just day of travel services. That's kind of where we're starting. And so you think, hey, there's an IROP, I need to rebook a flight. How do we make sure we get you to the right place at the right time? But that's kind of the easy table stakes piece. You look to the future, I look at shopping, and I look at shopping in a multi-carrier shop world, especially in the corporate world. We know that's going to change drastically, and it means there's likely going to be less offer put in front of a potential customer, because they're going to be saying, hey, I'm going to this place at this time. I need to be there by this time for a meeting in downtown Munich. Show me the best option, right? And so if we talk about all this simplifying things, the more offers you create, the more ability you need to actually customize or give the traveler the ability to customize what they're getting back. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in a world where you're getting an AI prompt output that is just going to be impossible to sift through.
I mean, we're looking at a future where your digital twin AI agent is out there shopping on your behalf, and you trust that as opposed to the brand because you've trained it to do what you wanted to do. Is that how we're going?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing too, is you're going to have this agentic AI from a third party. Delta and other carriers are likely to have their own too. Yeah. How are they talking to each other as well? Especially when it comes back to servicing as well. So there's a lot out there. We are investing a lot in exploring these spaces, knowing that is the next frontier. I have a 9-year-old. I watch him fly around on his tablet. The way he interacts with things, including Amazon today, is just completely different than I ever have.
The danger is, Ronnie, that if aviation's already behind the Amazonization of society, it's going to be well behind the agentic AIization of society, because it can't catch up with Amazon.
I think it depends on where it's being applied across the whole business, and not just within the buying and the product space. As a Gen Z myself, not actually true, I'm a millennial. As a Gen Z myself, I'll see if I can pass. As a Gen Z myself, I just know that people are thinking about things quicker and faster and smoother. So wherever we can across the journey, across the way we present the offers, how we show the offers, and equally how we ensure that customers take those offers on and purchase those offers, you have to think about making it as frictionless as possible.
Ursula, thoughts on the Gen Z factor?
Yeah. A couple of thoughts about them, and obviously we do regular research about this, and what you see is, first of all, they actually do love searching a bit, as you also mentioned, Lee, and because they want to be sure they've got the best deals. So unless they've got already the trust in your brand that they always come back to your brand to find the best offers, they want this reassurance. That's already one thing. The other thing is, whilst they are searching and also booking, they also want to have some fun with it. So not only do they like to book via mobile, and this is when you convert more, but you need to think about gamification. You need to actually make it a bit entertaining. Ultimately, it's about travel. It should be a bit entertaining and not just a hard and tough and boring job. And that's what you have to remember. So you need to include this. Social media or other places where they actually like to be. It's ultimately be where your customers are. So you need to think about how to deal with it. Make it easy to share, which at the same time raises awareness for you. And there might be, or share also the key factors. If it's about clarity of what you really bought, share them via, for example, WhatsApp with them, if this is a channel which they like or they want to use, or other channels that might not yet even exist today. Be ready to do this and adapt to it and ensure you really meet them where they are.
Ability to directly interact with brands. This is a great way to build trust. Thanks for your questions on Slido. Do you like the top one about making things too complex? We will address that. But I like the one below that. We go to UX. And when you think of UX, you think of how have brands like Uber really become almost the go-to taxi hailing app. And it's UX. It's just, I mean, everyone's copied it. And so is that the future battleground? If Delta produces the best UX, people come to you to fly with you, even if other carriers do similar things.
I mean, we certainly think so. That in combination with our loyalty program does create a lot of stickiness with our travelers. If you look at our corporate travelers, 90% of them use the app on day of travel. And it's not just for shopping, it is the overall experience. It puts them in control. We have invested a lot more in our mobile these days than we have on our desktop, simply because the usage rate is there. And as you look at the segmentation based on generations, the younger you skew, the more likely they're not only buying, but just living in that app from a Delta experience.
Christian.
One thought about UX. I believe airlines invest a lot in UX. We're a bit puzzled sometimes that in the offer order transformation, there is limited talk about customer data. While if you talk UX, the starting point is actually customer data. So I'm sure a number of things happen a bit behind the scenes, but we'd like to bring this conversation a bit more in the forefront of this transformation. We're feeling it's a bit left on the sides. And actually, I had a conversation with T2RL. I asked them, can we not rebrand this panel to customer data in for order transformation?
So when we talk about dynamic retailing, actually what we really mean is that it's constant optimization. And airlines today, they maybe invest as a once-off into UX, so they say we want to redesign our web portal, or we want to invest in a mobile apps, and we want a completely fresh design, and so on. And they think that's it. That's now my project, and for the next years I can relax and I don't need to work with it. But what we tend to say is you need to be able to build them and design them already in a way that you can be dynamic, and that it's easy for the teams to do this, because this means you can continuously optimize. So you need to experiment. Position our new product features here on my web portal, here in my mobile app, maybe via gamification. Do we convert more? Does that actually work? If not, test another thing and do this continuously. And I think airlines are not doing it enough.
Before we finish, there's a question that's got 4 votes, so we should address it. Maybe it's one for Ronnie, you ex-airline person. Are we an industry that is guilty of over complex? If that's a word.
Yes.
Making things too complex for
Yes.
the needs be, and there's no need for it.
Yes.
Why?
Well, how long have we got? 2 minutes?
Well, exactly.
No, I think some of it came from the need to compete and the way that the products changed, but the systems and the technology didn't. So therefore, in order to deliver a semblance of meeting the customer need in the different product types we needed to sell, we had to force that through more complex legacy systems, which has then led to just an ongoing, long-term layer upon layer of complexity. So yes, my answer for that is always yes.
It always feels like a massive amount of reinventing the wheel in technology for minimal gain and,
Exactly.
and maximum complexity. I'm going to have to wrap things up, or else Mark will lynch me. Can you please join me in thanking the panel? Thanks to Patrick, thanks to Ronnie, thanks to Christian, thanks to Ursula, thanks guys. Enjoy the rest of your show.